Welcome to Backstage Antiques. I'm Dawn Croma, and this is Linda Benson.
Hi everyone. We have some really neat items to appraise tonight. And first up we have Kathy Melka, who's brought us an interesting print of John Alden and Priscilla. Dawn's going to tell us a little bit about it.
I think first I'll let Kathy tell us something about it. Kathy, where did you get this piece?
It's been in our family. I believe it started with my great-grandmother, then my grandmother, then my mother, and then myself.
Mm-hmm. And you have any idea when your great-grandmother may have acquired it?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. It is a print of a etching. And you could call it a lithograph if you wanted to. It's a type of print. And the subject matter is very popular. They did several paintings and etchings of John Alden and Priscilla. This particular piece is large. Do you know if the frame is original?
No, it's not. Years ago, the frame was getting very worn out, and my father felt that because the picture was so dark, that when he went to go get it reframed, he decided to go with the lighter frame, so it is not the original frame.
Mm-hmm. One from the period probably would have been darker.
Right, it was much darker.
Right. It's a very pretty piece. They're popular items, and due to its size and the good condition that it's in, I would say that it's worth about $145 to $175.
Great.
Thanks for showing it to us.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I brought this little figurine that I got from my mother and father, and it's very, very old, but I know absolutely nothing about it.
So you got it from your mother and father?
Yes, from my mother and father, and they had it many, many years. So maybe it's about, I'm thinking 50 years old.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This sweet little German figurine is from the collection of Marge Hook. Marge, what can you tell me about this piece?
Well, my parents were collectors over the years, and they would pick out different things that they liked, and this was one of them that I remember being in the antique cabinet when I was growing up. And when our parents passed away, each of the grandchildren got to choose something, several things, and this was one of the things my oldest daughter, Kathy, picked out. She always liked this one.
She has nice taste. It's a very pretty little piece.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's a mark on the bottom that shows a crown over a letter. It's difficult to tell what the letter is. It looks like perhaps a script L, but I'm not sure. When you see that type of a symbol, it usually indicates that it's a Dresden piece, not Meissen or one of the other German companies. This piece has an interesting point to it, and that's this little gold ball. When did you say that you remember seeing it in the cabinet?
Oh, it probably was 8 or 10. You know, I'm 67, so how many years?
What year?
All right, in the 40s.
1940s.
Mid-40s, I would say, right.
That would sound right, because from the middle 40s until the late, from the middle 30s to the late 40s, these were popular. They had them with cherubs, they had them with nudes, and they were very popular with an artist for Hutchinooter called, his name was K. Tutter. This piece is very well done. It's very well executed. It has a little bit of delicacy here.
Right.
There's no damage to the piece that I can find whatsoever. And I would value it at about $95 today.
That's a good price. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's really cute.
What item did you bring tonight?
This is a pocket watch that my husband received from his grandfather. So we think it's about 100 years old. He worked for the railroad.
Do you know anything about it or what it's worth?
No, we've never had it appraised. We've
So
never had it appraised. So
you're going to find out tonight?
Special in our family. And it was given to my husband just shortly before his grandfather died. So my husband remembers it as in the early 40s. So hopefully it'll be passed down into the family.
That's interesting. Thank you.
I really like old clocks and watches, and Don Mudra has brought us in a very pretty Elgin pocket watch. Don, what can you tell me about this watch?
Not too much, except that it was owned by my grandfather, and he kind of passed it on to me in the, well, he died in '41, so probably a year later I got it from my grandmother, and he worked on the railroad, And that's about all I know.
Okay. This is an Elgin pocket watch with a second hand. The case is coin silver. We can see it's even running.
Yes, it works.
So you got this watch in the 40s?
Yes.
Okay. I would think that this watch is probably about 100 years old. The way we can find that out, Elgin has a really great website where they list all their serial numbers, and you can tell the manufacture date. The serial number on here is right up at the top here.
Okay.
Okay. This is a 17 jewel watch. Also, the case is intact. There are several pieces to the case. You can see this, which covers the works, and then the front and back. They each have a serial number on them also, and the 3 serial numbers of those pieces match. You also, there we go, you have a working second hand on this watch. So if he was a railroader, it was important for him to know down to the second when to pull in. The train would pull in, and sometimes it would be a very short period of time. They needed the second hand to keep track of when to go. You also have the watch chain on it. I didn't see any markings on it, but many times these watch chains are 10-karat gold. So that's a possibility for this one. It's original to the watch when you got it?
Yes.
All right. And you know how this was used?
Put it in a pocket.
Right. You put it in a button loophole and then slide the watch into your vest. Right, into your vest pocket. This is really nice, and Elgin watches are very, very desirable. They're very well made. These older ones are extremely sought after. Many times they did come in gold. This is a coin silver case. It's in working condition. That in itself is amazing. So you've kept it well, you've kept it out of damp areas, dusty areas. Have you ever had it cleaned or serviced?
Nope, I've never touched it.
Okay. I would think a watch like this in its present condition, it has beautiful markings on it, etched into the coin silver. It also is monogrammed. But an Elgin pocket watch like this, about 100 years old, would probably be in the range of $500 to $650. So you've got a special memory and a great watch to boot.
Well, that's fine.
Thanks for bringing it.
Okay, you're welcome.
What items did you bring tonight?
I bought a gnome.
A gnome?
A gnome.
Do you know anything about this gnome?
I think it's a paperweight, I don't know, or a doorstop.
A gnome looks like Neil.
How'd you get this gnome?
I don't know, it was in the house.
It's in the house. You
I
just
found it was there one day and I just found it.
This is an interesting little piece. If he went by the pound, he'd probably be worth quite a bit, wouldn't he?
It's quite heavy.
You could call him a gnome. That's what I would call him. Other people might call him a dwarf. Where did you get it?
I received it from my father-in-law, about 35 years ago.
Do you know anything about the background?
No, I don't know where he had got it or how he came to have it.
And did he use it in the home anywhere in particular?
Maybe for a doorstop, I really don't know.
Okay. Gnomes are very popular. I think they came from like Norway or Scandinavia originally, and people collect them quite readily. This guy is in really good condition. His paint is in wonderful condition. I would say he has the original paint job. Linda and I looked it over pretty good to try and get a good idea. And anywhere that it's worn through or chipped off, you don't see another color beneath it.
I see.
I think it was always used in the house because there's no sign of any rust on him. And I would guess that you're right and he has a doorstop. Doorstops are very popular collectibles in their own right. So you have the two things. You have a crossover, what they call a crossover collectible. You have a gnome and you have a doorstop. This guy I would price about $250.
Oh, really? Oh,
Doorstops
that's
are pretty
surprising,
popular.
yes. Oh, that's very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I love his keys
I do too.
and his lantern.
What item did you bring tonight?
A piece of Hager pottery.
Do you know anything about this pottery?
Well, it's from the early 80s, and it's an Art Deco style piece, which is very popular right now. It's sort of a resurgence. So this is not, it's not really, really old, but it's very stylistic and very collectible for some people.
How did you go about getting this item?
Well, you know what? I thought, because my grandmother collected Hager, and I thought this was one of my grandmother's pieces. I grabbed the wrong one. I have a lot of Hager that's a lot older, but I grabbed this because I like the shape of it, and it turns out I probably got this from an old boyfriend a long time ago. But yeah, that's it, and it's been in my house ever since, and I love it, but, you know, it's probably not worth $1 million or anything, but, you know, it's all right.
Well, you never know. It could be.
Yeah, never know.
This figurine is very reminiscent of the Art Deco period of the late 20s and 30s. Patricia Mao has brought it in for us to take a look at. What can you tell us about this, Patricia?
I can tell you I got it from an old boyfriend who was an antique dealer in the 70s, or 80s.
Well, this piece is actually from the 80s, and it's a piece of Hager pottery, Hager being an Illinois company. Hager actually was operating back in the 20s and 30s and made some beautiful Art Deco pieces, Art Deco figurines, nude lady figurines. One of their favorite designers was Royal Hickman. A lot of times you'll see Hager pieces marked Royal Hager, and that wasn't because it was a special Hager piece, it was because it was designed by Royal Hickman, so he attached his name to it. This piece is actually labeled on the bottom with a Hager tag. It's marked shape number 6035, and it does say copyright 1985. So this piece could have been produced as early as 85 or somewhat thereafter. It's a nice decorative piece in a pretty blue, and as I said, very reminiscent of the Art Deco period of the late 20s and 30s. Do you keep her on a shelf, display her proudly? Or?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Pieces like this are meant to be enjoyed and displayed. I really like her, and decoratively, of course, she's not an antique. Decoratively, she's probably in the $50 range. Thanks very much for bringing her.
Thank you.
Rumor has it you know a lot about antiques and antiquing.
That's correct. You know, LaGrange and LaGrange Park as an area have a long history of valuing historical items, and antiques and antiquarians here in this area have a vast knowledge of American antiques as well as European and even some Asian antiques. You might find quite a collection here dating back to the second bronze period of early Greek civilizations. Many things that were buried hundreds of feet below Calendar Court in LaGrange that were discovered while excavating. But yeah, many of those items may be on display here tonight. We'll see what comes up. I'm very curious about that, and I'm looking forward to seeing some amazing things.
That'll be your applause sign. So.
What items did you bring tonight?
There's a book here from a lodge of some type, and there's 2 hats, Shriners hats.
Do you know anything about them?
Well, I've heard of the Shriners, but this other book, I don't really know anything about it. No.
Are you excited to find out what they might be worth?
Yes, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Linda and I are enjoying some various fraternal organization items that Len Wilt brought in. Len, these are Shriners pieces. Do you know anything about them?
No, other than just purchasing these items at a garage sale.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is your typical Shriner fez. People do like these type of collectibles, especially Shriners. They collect it probably more than anyone else. It may look a little bit odd to you to find jewelry on the hat, and you might think somebody added it, but that is an official Shriners sign. They use the camel and various Mid-Eastern symbols in their things. This one has part of a scimitar pin on it still. The other half is broken off, and this is the scimitar, the sword. And it also has a separate pin, which would be the crescent. I'm not positive of the age. They really haven't changed in design or style. I can just approximate the age from what they look like. And I would say they're probably maybe 40 years old, something like that at the most. They were in a box, and the box looks like it might be newer than that, so it's hard to age them. But they're still collectible. They're still interested in Shriners items, so it doesn't really matter if they're 40 years old or 20 years old. And this little ornament was also in there. I haven't seen those ornaments before. It's a little interesting piece. I would say that the fez are worth $50 to $75 a piece. And I would place the ornament something like $15. You might get more than that if you decide to sell it on eBay or something like that.
What's the purpose of the ornament?
It's a Christmas ornament.
Oh, okay.
And then Linda has a Masonic piece.
A very heavy ledger. You got this Masonic book at the same garage sale as those pieces?
Yes.
Again, a fraternal piece. It's a Mason's ledger from the True Blue Lodge out of Chicago. This ledger is actually the sign-in book for this lodge, and it runs from 1938 through 1957. So there is almost 20 years of membership in this ledger, and it must weigh about 30 pounds. It's very, very heavy. If I just open it up, you can see the lovely end papers on it. There's even a date in this binder, the Tarco line binder, June 1938. But the way we really know that the Masons started in 1938, it's dated right here. Their first entry is December 8th, 1938. This is their sign-in. What I found interesting as I went through, it's just general meetings, just sign-ins. There's visitors, there's members. But once I got back, way back, a page was marked off with this. Creative painting was marked off with this. This is a postcard that was sent out to members in 1955. It has the date right there. Basically, it's announcing that one of the members has died. Dear brother, it is with deep sorrow that we inform you of the death of Brother Helmer Hendrickson. The last line on this says, "It is your Masonic duty to attend." So the Masons were a very close brotherhood. And when one of their members died, it was an order almost for them to go to that funeral. I find this very interesting. I almost find this postcard more interesting than the ledger itself, even though this is an incredible piece of history, and any Mason would probably be very pleased to have this, especially if this lodge is still in existence. That would be the main collector of this type of piece, because this is basically just a ledger, unless there were some famous members, which I didn't go through it in detail to read. If there was a very famous signature member, it would make this worth a bit more. This postcard would actually be probably $15 to $20 just by itself. The book does have a few condition issues, but to someone who collects Masonic items, they might be willing to pay about $100. So you probably have about $120 worth of Masonic items right here. We're really happy that you brought these pieces in, the Shriners pieces and the Masonic pieces. Very, very interesting. Thanks a lot.
It looked interesting.
Definitely is.
Okay, I bought a doll that I used to have when I was a kid, and I lost it, and I found it at the Riverside Antique sale. I thought they were having a garage sale. I stopped, and I found this doll, and I was like so excited when I found it.
How old were you when you lost it?
Oh, my mother died when I was 19, and my dad was drinking, and I moved with my older sister, so he just got rid of everything. And years later, I said, "What happened to all our stuff?" And my older sister said, "Don't you remember Dad was drinking? He let everybody have everything." And now, because I'm 55, all the stuff is actually probably antiques. Because I was younger, and it's like when I find stuff that I had, I'm like very excited, you know.
This little dolly belongs to Diana Short. Diane, what can you tell me about the doll? Where did you find her?
Well, it was at a Riverside antique show. I thought it was a garage sale they had on the lawn in Riverside, so I stopped and I found out it was an antique sale. And if it was my original doll, she'd probably be about 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. But I did have one like her when I was a little girl. And
So you were buying back your childhood.
I sure was. I seen it and I just had to have it. So
she's a fun piece. She's from the 50s. She's
Yes.
made by the Unita Doll Company. And the name of the doll is Dollykin. Dollykin's big appeal was that she could move like a human. She has so many different joints that you could put her in virtually every position that the human body could go into, supposedly. Well, obviously she doesn't move her fingers, but her body itself. This doll is in pretty good condition. She's got a little bit of staining in the plastic, and she's not currently wearing her original clothing, but I believe you have it with the original box.
yes.
And that outfit was one of those tunic dresses with the dress pants underneath. She's sitting on her original shoes. I think they're her original shoes.
Yeah, the elastic is a little worn out here because of the age, but so they won't stay on, so I just keep them.
It's nice to have them.
Yes.
It's a good thing to keep. The fact that she has her original box is great. There is more to the box than what you have. The inserts and that sort of thing would make it more valuable. You have some paperwork with you that showed it being sold online about 6 years ago for $400 or over $400. There's a few reasons for that. One is the doll market was higher at that time. In addition, her condition is not the same condition as theirs. And that doll had everything in the box, including the little booklet. They had everything. So it would command the highest price. I think that your doll is still highly collectible and still heavily sought after, and I would probably say, well, I do say that she would be about $125. She could be more than that when the market changes. But just enjoy her. It's always fun to have your childhood.
I do. I love her.
Chef, and that's it. And we may have our videographer over there, David Fisher. He might be coming around.
Nancy Lambs has brought us a very pretty oil painting. You can see it's the shepherdess and her flock. Nancy, where did you get this painting?
Well, actually, I think it was my husband's grandmother, and she didn't like it, and she gave it to her daughter-in-law, who apparently also didn't like it, because when we cleaned out the house, we found it down in the basement in the corner, and it wasn't framed, so we framed it, and I kind of liked it.
I think it's very interesting that there's sheep and lambs on there, and your last name is Lambs.
That's probably why somebody gave it to her.
It is signed, I believe the signature is J. Seagull or Seagal. Always a little difficult to read artists. Just from the quality of the piece, although it's very, very nice, I don't believe this would be a listed artist. The person was very accomplished. As you can see by the beautiful scene of the shepherdess, they're at the, we'll call it a corral made out of the twigs and branches. And all the sheep are waiting for her to pull the hay over the edges. Chickens are scratching around. Very pretty, very tranquil. You can almost see the light, end of day light reflecting on the sheep. It's just a very peaceful setting. I like it. I like it very, very much. I think it's a great family piece, and it should go on the wall somewhere. And I would put a value on it of probably $250 to $300. You should enjoy it.
Yeah, I do.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Marie LeGros, this is such a pretty little blue and white vase. What can you tell me about it?
Well, when I was a little girl, my mother would take it out only when we had company. It was about the best thing we had at that time. And my mother came from Canada when she was 13 with her mother and brothers. And her mother came from the Ukraine. Now, if it was somewhere prior to my grandmother, I don't know. Okay. But I know I'm the third generation to have it.
Okay, so it belonged to your grandmother.
Right.
Originally.
Right.
It does have the look of a European piece. Linda and I were looking it over. We thought, well, at first, well, you know, Canada, maybe French, although it didn't really look French. We could tell it definitely wasn't from America, from the United States. You just told me about the Ukraine, and that made a lot of sense because of the design to it. Has that very European look, that very almost Slavic look from that area. And it is slip decorated stoneware. And stoneware is a type of pottery. The slip decoration is the white enameling that's on the top. And it's not really enamel. What it is it's paint mixed with pottery. And that's how they got the raised effect. The interior has a crackled glaze, and that's not, we don't think that's from age. We think they meant to do that. Perhaps they were trying to approximate an Oriental piece, a Chinese piece, when they made this, because that's what it's reminiscent of with the colors and the crackled. There is a mark on the bottom, however, I don't know what that mark means. My guess is that the 20 is the style number. And then the other mark, I'm not sure, it looks almost like an MJ. I'm not sure what that other mark is. It's hard to tell. But it's probably the initials of the decorator.
Michael Jordan.
There you go. There you go. It's just a really pleasing piece to the eye. There's not a big problem with the condition of it anywhere. There's a small chip off the glaze on the piece. It wouldn't have a big effect on the value. There's I meant on the slip. There's a couple of lines through the slip that you get with age as well, you know, and a smaller chip. Those are not important so far as the piece goes. This piece would be valued in my booth at probably $175. It's a very pretty piece.
I wouldn't part with it for the world.
I'll bet you wouldn't.
No. And it's nice to have something in a house older than me.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's about it for this time of Backstage Antiques. I'd like to thank the LaGrange Park Antique Mall for the use of the facilities, and I'd like to thank Linda for joining me.
You're welcome, Dawn.
So from Linda and Dawn, thank you and take care.
Bye-bye.